right, guys, what's about to happen right now? Everyone's saying that Ethereum's going to go to 20,000, 15,000. I've even seen 50,000, 60,000. I've seen crazy numbers. Is this really going to happen? What can we expect? I've been through many of these cycles, and this cycle is pretty much playing out exactly like the other ones. And it's also playing out like another video I did about a year ago that I said, is ETH going to go to 15,000? I laid out the theory. Pretty much it's coming to light. So I'm going to go over it with you guys so you guys can really be on top of this, because this is important information. I think a lot of people are going to get it wrong. Tom Lee is predicting 250,000 Bitcoin and 15,000 Ethereum. Now, let's go over how this is going to happen first. Okay, I've said this last time. What happens is Bitcoin goes up first. Okay, it sets the trend. It sets the trend of what's about to happen. And why is this all happening? I'm going to get into all that with you too. With the Bitcoin ETFs, with Michael Saylor buying with MicroStrategies, or now called Strategy, and all these things kind of help. But what's happening on Ethereum is even more unique, because Ethereum kind of has almost like a triple top right here. It's tried, and it has to break this 4,000. Okay, it has to break it in order for Ethereum to go higher. And every time it's got close to this 4,000 mark, it's kind of step back. It's kind of step back. It's kind of step back. Because guess what? Why doesn't prices go higher? Because that's what people always say about Bitcoin. Why doesn't it go to like 250,000? Because people are selling. You guys have to wake up and realize, yes, people are selling. Don't be so like naive and think, oh, everyone's just buying. No. People are selling. There's a lot of people who own Ethereum for a lot less. They bought it and they staked it. Staked for years in some cases. Okay, they bought hundreds of it at $1,000, at $500, at $100. Okay, so you guys need to stop being naive. And by the way, Ethereum's distribution is way better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's distribution is atrocious, and I'm going to go through it. There's guys that own 80,000 Bitcoin. It's worth like $10 billion that just sold like last week. That we don't have that in Ethereum. Ethereum doesn't have one guy that can sell it. But however, you can see the strength wasn't there either. When a little bit of selling started to hit, it started to just dive. Now, if you start looking what's going on, which this is the difference of what happens, what is helping push Ethereum up. These companies are starting to buy Ethereum. Okay, they're becoming Ethereum treasury companies. Bitmain Immersion, which is owned by this guy right here, Tom Lee. Remember his name. He's becoming a very important figure in all of this. Okay, this guy could probably be the next MicroStrategies, could be the next Michael Saylor. Okay, this guy, I mean, he's smart. He's taking the playbook of Saylor and he's applying it. And by the way, if you looked at Michael Saylor's MicroStrategies conference call the other day on Friday, I believe, guess who was in there? Tom Lee, asking questions, because he runs a fund, or like an advisory and a fund and all sorts of stuff. So he knows exactly what to do. By the way, he owns 833,000 of Ethereum. There was no one ever this big. The biggest one was the Ethereum Foundation at 233,000, which is about $1 billion. It's not much. What happens if Ethereum does a 5x? This will be worth about $4 to $4.5 billion, basically. It's not much. You don't have these crazy whales like you do in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you literally have Michael Saylor, who owns like $75 billion with this company. These are crazy numbers of ownership, and that's because Bitcoin is a much larger asset. So Ethereum is a lot smaller asset, so you got to understand it can also rise a lot quicker, which is something you have to start taking in mind. Okay, this group of people that are selling right now, there's about 500,000 people 500,000 tokens that were unstaked from validator nodes to basically go sell. Okay, they're unstaking to go sell. That's just reality. Okay, don't be naive. People are selling. The reason Bitcoin isn't 200,000 right now is because there's guys that bought it for $10 and mined it for free, and they're selling. Okay, they're taking a profit. Do not be naive. People always take profits for different reasons. If you look at the market caps, they're quite different. Almost 2.3 trillion. And you got Ethereum's at 441 billion. You're talking over 5.1, 5.2 times larger, guys. Bitcoin is absolutely enormous. The last time Bitcoin and Ethereum, the last bull cycle, Ethereum got to 85% of Bitcoin. So these are my projections. Okay, I'm going to give them to you so you guys understand. I'm going to go through you how this is going to happen. Ethereum will get very close. I don't think it's going to get to 85% of the value of Bitcoin this time around. I think it'll probably get to like 75. But even if I use a conservative number of 65%, we're going to take a lot of X's, okay? We're going to do many X's, many times, 3-4 time X's. And that's how we're going to get to 15,000 in my opinion. So I'm going to give you a number. For example, I believe that on the low end, Bitcoin is going to be worth about $3 trillion. So $3 trillion on Bitcoin is going to give you a valuation of about, you're looking at about a valuation of about $150,000. That's it. And some people are calling for a Bitcoin to get at 250, but let's say I'm being conservative. We're only going to be at $3 trillion, which is not very much, which is still, below the value of Microsoft and Nvidia. So Bitcoin is worldwide. It's global. It could be worth a lot more. So if we just use that number, okay, and we say that Ethereum is going to become 65% of that 3 trillion number, you're looking at a $2 trillion asset of Ethereum, okay? 2 trillion divided by 121 million tokens. We're looking at a $16,500. And that's at 65% of the value of Bitcoin. Last time it got to 85%. And the time before that, it went over. It actually flipped Bitcoin for a brief moment. So keep that in mind. Each time it's becoming a little bit less. And now I'm going way less, going from 85% down to 65%. So I do believe 15,000 is imminent. It will happen, in my opinion. It's very, very likely that it will happen. Now, why is it going to happen? Well, you got all these guys buying it up, number one. You didn't have these last time around. You're just buying it up. And there's more of them coming online fast. And guess what? After they stop buying it up, other people are going to be buying it up. And that's what's happening. Let's look at why it's going to happen. Fed fund rates are probably going to come down because look at the unemployment rate. The employment rate, we only added 19,000 and then 14,000 and 73,000 employees in the last 3 months. This is terrible numbers. You have to go back years to see numbers this bad. In fact, 3 months in a row this bad, I don't even see it. I mean, my goodness, this is like recession numbers. These are actual recession numbers. In fact, it might be before this. I don't see any 3 months that are this horrific, actually, unless you go back to COVID, which I don't want to count COVID. And even COVID, right after those first 2 months, we lost jobs and we started bouncing back. I mean, 3 months of basically anemic zero growth. I believe we're going to go from zero growth basically to negative. I think we're going to start losing jobs. Now, this is where it gets also very interesting. Labor participation rate is actually going down. If the labor participation rate had stayed the same, our unemployment rate would be closer to 5% versus they're saying about 4.2, 4.3%. The reason that is because a lot of immigrants are basically not participating in the workforce that were participating, and immigrants have a higher participation in the workforce. So actually immigration policies that we have in America are starting to impact and this is probably part of the impact too. Some companies probably just can't find employees. So when we talk about immigration, understand that it has deeper impacts because more immigrants have a much higher working percentage of people work in the labor force than non-immigrants do, Native Americans. So that is going to have an impact on everyone, and it is, and you're starting to see that. And in fact, the size and the GDP all get impacted by this. So if we have millions of people leaving the labor force, well, that's going to have a problem. Now, where are these jobs coming? In the last month, a lot of these jobs were coming in healthcare, private education and healthcare services. Well, if you didn't have that, and that's just government sponsored, because a lot of the healthcare money comes from the government, Medi-Cal, Medicare, all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? You wouldn't even have these jobs. So this is government sponsored. Everything else is kind of going backwards. It's kind of having a hard time. And you can kind of see that even the 3 month chart, you're starting to see jobs in areas that normally, even retail trade 3 months is down, sectors, wholesale trade, manufacturing that Trump is trying to bring back has gone down. So you got to understand there's a lot of bad information. The Fed needs to lower rates. I think we've got to the point where the Fed is seeing the data and they need to lower rates. Well, what happens when they lower rates? Well, money supply is going to increase. Money supply impacts, you guessed it, risk on assets. What's a risk on asset? I explained this very well, by the way. So sub and like, man, I explained this very well. All of this means Ethereum will become a risk-on asset, and so will the alts. So what has to happen? Bitcoin has to get to the promised land, 150,000. Ethereum needs to break through 4,000, needs to break through old highs, which everything, including the money supply going up, and the money supply going up, we're at all-time highs. Yes, we are. We're at all-time highs on the money supply. Okay? That is all-time. Every month we're going up, and it's going to continue to go up. Usually Bitcoin and Ethereum lag the money supply by a couple months, about 3 months for Bitcoin. Ethereum, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. It's a little bit different. Ethereum is more of a risk on, meaning interest rates go down, money supply goes up. Ethereum is like a leverage Bitcoin at that point, and it's going to pop. And then it's going to go to 5,000. And it has to get past 5,000, the old highs, in order for alt season to begin. Alt season has not started. There's some rumblings in it. There's a little bit of rumblings on it. You're seeing XRP doing well. You're seeing BNB doing well. You're seeing Solana kind of just stable for now. But you're seeing a couple tokens take off, but not a lot. Okay? The rest will not take off. Chainlink is actually taken off. The rest will not take off. Guys like AVAX, ICP, which I like, and a couple other ones will not take off. Where is ICP? There you go. 523. I did go long on this around $5 mark on a leverage play. And as I did also with Avalanche. And that seems to be the play. I'm going to trade them for now. There's no reason not to trade these. Go ahead, trade them back and forth. Don't worry about holding them. They're not going to explode anytime soon, because these things all have to happen in order for the alts to explode. And it will happen fast and it will happen furious. Once you see Ethereum go past 4,000, that's the first number. And that could actually happen within the next month. And once you see Ethereum go past old highs, okay? So 4,000 can happen, hopefully in the next month. And then you need the old highs, which is 4,800. Once it takes out the 4,800 up here, then that's alt season. Then we're going to start. Because at that point, we're just going to probably go to $6,000, $7,000. It's going to erupt. It's going to erupt, okay? Because it goes into price discovery. You probably had everybody that was going to sell, and you probably have a lot of people who've already been buying between 3,000 and that point 5,000 or 6,000. So they're not really incentivized to sell. They don't really have profits. Everyone that had it at a lower price has already taken profits. So that's something to remember. And at that point, you're probably looking at 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and it'll probably, it's kind of going to do what Bitcoin does, consolidate in a range for a little bit and then go up a little bit. So consolidate and go up. It'll become a little bit less volatile. But in order for that to happen, Ethereum does need to get into probably close to $1 trillion mark. That's probably where it needs to get to. And then the theory that I've laid out will come. All of this will come. And the reality is everything is playing to a T for this to happen. Yes, unfortunately, we need bad labor reports, bad unemployment reports, because that is what was the shot in the arm when you look at this chart last time. This was when all the money and the interest rates, all the money from the M2 got pumped into the market. Interest rates went down. Everybody was getting stimulus checks. This is what pumped up Ethereum, and it went crazy. In fact, Ethereum, if you look at it, was about $250, $300 before all this happened. I mean, it did a crazy number. It went all the way up to $4,800, almost $5,000, $4,815. I mean, crazy number. It is going to be a risk-on asset. It is going to be volatile. It is going to be crazy. It is going to be turbulent. But I won't be surprised that we jump to about $5,000 or $6,000 very quickly. Go into price discovery mode. Get to that $7,000 or $8,000 range, and then it's probably going to consolidate for a while. Okay, it's not going to be just a straight shot up. These numbers get big. They kind of, as with Bitcoin, they get big. They kind of just sit there for a while, let accumulation happen, consolidate, and then they go the next leg up. So that's what's going to happen. And then you're going to see alt season happen. That's when you're going to see all these other tokens like ICP, AVAX, Mantle, you name it, BNB, all these are going to erupt. And you're going to see the whole entire alt season, DeFi markets, everything come into play. That's how it's going to happen. If it does happen, which I think it will. I'm about 95% certain. This is literally playing out like the last bull market. So hopefully that information helps. Hopefully you're prepared, and do not be scared of getting in some of these tokens, buying in early in some of these alts and holding. If you want to get in some of these alts now, I'd probably recommend it. Buy some of the alts now. Buy and hold. It's okay. You might end up holding them for 6 months or maybe even a year until alt season happens. Alt season doesn't happen, remember, until ETH breaks 4,800 has to break it. Has to break it. Alts will not move. That has happened every single time that the alts have moved is when Ethereum has broken all-time highs. And M2 money supply and interest rates have all played a role. Keep this all in your mind when you're out here trading. All right, guys, best of luck.